Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Brushfire Mind. We do this every week at 2000. That's 8 o'clock p.m. Standard Time for the civilians out there. Good to have you. We're thrilled that you're here to burn with us. First time watching. Make sure you subscribe. Go ahead and hit that bell notification so you know when we go live. And you can catch us. Follow us on Twitter at Brushfire Mind. I send out a tweet about 10 minutes before we go live. Usually, let you know we're about to be there, and that'll link straight over here. So tonight, we're going to talk about the Trump dossier a little bit. How BuzzFeed ran it. Why BuzzFeed ran it. We're going to talk about Mueller and his involvement. We're going to talk about why his ass needs to be in jail. Somebody's going to die. Stick around, because it might be you, and you want to know that. Okay. So I see Sharon's in there, and my buddy Legion. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. And well, there's a lot to talk about.
Echo.
What's that?
Echo.
What echo?
We're getting a lot of complaints about echo.
Oh, goody gum drops. Hey, are you getting an echo on the voice, or are you getting an echo? Were you getting an echo during the intro? I need to know. Anyway.
Every word has a massive echo effect.
Oh well, that's awesome. Let me know if that just changed. Well, shit. Now we're sitting here. I'm just gonna start talking about the stuff. Y'all let me know if the audio's fixed. If it's not, I got to get up and do something, and that's not good. Y'all, I apologize for that. I brought in some new audio equipment. Okay.
Oh, it's better. Yay!
Good. Then I know what happened, and I'll have to see what I can do about that later. Crap. Oh well. So, and I apologize for that, guys. I brought in some new sound equipment, new audio equipment. Last week we were doing the lapel mics. It crashed down behind, my lapel mic crashed down behind my shirt. Couldn't hear anything for the last half of the show, and I'm so sorry about that. And you'll probably just heard me burping at the damn microphone too. I'm working on it, guys. I really am. Let's see if we can't get through some of this material tonight. So, we got the feedback issue, but now we're good. Got it. All right, and as always, I'm going to go back and watch the show afterwards to see what happened and what I could do better. But hey, our video quality is dialed right the fuck in, isn't it? Yes, sir. So, the Trump dossier. Well, apparently, the allegation is adequate to demand an investigation. We've heard that before. The allegation was adequate to demand an investigation. We heard that on stuff with Reagan. We heard that on stuff with Tricky Dick. Dems love that. But there were actual allegations before. In the Iran hostage crisis, there were allegations. With the Trump dossier, that thing was debunked and delegitimized almost immediately. Last year, it should have been off the radar. Should have been off the radar almost as soon as it popped on. Now, BuzzFeed ran it because they're not a legitimate news source. And everybody knew they weren't a legitimate news source. So they could run it, and it gave the New York Times and all those guys the opportunity to report that it had been reported that. This would be akin to the New York Times running headline stories about Bat Boy, according to the National Enquirer. Well, okay, so now you've got your excuse to get it in the public eye without having to admit that you believe it's legitimate news. I mean, Trump's a germaphobe. He doesn't like to shake hands. And he's getting into golden showers. As this was hard to believe on the face of it from the start. Now, there's more to the dossier than that. And in fairness, there is some substance to some of the parts of the dossier. But that's one of those things if you tell just a little bit of truth, it makes the rest of the lies a lot easier to swallow. Robert A. Heinlein, the best way to lie is to tell the right amount of truth unconvincingly. Robert A. Heinlein in Stranger in a Strange Land. If you haven't checked it out, I'll put a link in the description. You can go pick it up at Amazon. It's a good book. One of my favorites. Anyway, so this dossier launches an investigation into the allegations of collusion between Trump and Russia to affect the election. Immediately, we have testimony from various secretaries of states, not the Secretary of State, from the secretaries of states, and from election commissions, that there is absolutely no reasonable suspicion that any single vote was changed at any poll, any voting machine. There were no changed votes. Oh, well, they used Russian troll farmers to post fake news on social media.
Dude, don't you know? I totally voted for Donald Trump because of what my Facebook feed said.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Right.
You think I'm kidding?
It had nothing at all to do with anything that Hillary did.
No, dude, the fact that Hillary was a shit candidate and Donald Trump actually campaigned in the battleground states, no. It was totally because I saw on Facebook all this stuff about how, Hillary was evil. Because it was so hard to believe that Hillary was evil until a bunch of Russian troll farmers started spamming articles about it.
Right. So, there's that. And the thing that America needs to get in their skulls, needs to get real smart on real quick, this Uranium One Deal. The Uranium One Deal was finalized in 2010. Bob Mueller is investigating the Trump-Russia collusion around the same time that people are starting to get interested in the Uranium One Deal. Let's just put that in perspective. Mueller was the director of the FBI during the Uranium One Deal. So when the Uranium One Deal went down, Barack Obama was the president of the United States. We're talking 2009 and 2010. Barry O is the president. Hillary Clinton is the Secretary of State. Eric Holder is your Attorney General. Bob Mueller is Daddy Durfee, the director of the FBI. And that's when all this went down. Oh, and Rosenstein was not the Attorney General, the assistant AG. Shit, I forget that one, but come on, guys. I'm reaching back pretty far. I managed to get a pretty complete list there, but Rosenstein's involved too. So it was Rosenstein that appointed Mueller to be to lead the special counsel. Oh my God! Seriously? It's Hillary Clinton who sold 20% of the U.S. uranium supply to the Russians while she was the Secretary of State for what we now know was at a minimum $145 million worth of kickbacks funneled to her through the Canadian branch of the Clinton Foundation, and speaking fees paid to her and Bill separately and jointly. So Hillary, when she was campaigning, and after she lost and had to blame everything on everybody except for her, couldn't just be that she was a completely shit candidate. No, it had to be somebody else's fault. It's because white women are misogynists that hate women, and white men hate everything else. That's why Hillary lost. Damn it. So Hillary is the one that picks the fight and kind of gets the whole ball rolling on the Russian conspiracy. And then Rosenstein, who was involved in the Uranium One deal, appoints Mueller, who was involved in the Uranium One deal, Hillary, who was involved in colluding with Russia to sell out, and I'm using that word collusion right now for a reason. I'm going to get back to that. We're going to stop using that word. You are going to stop using that word. It's important. So Hillary gets it rolling. Hillary, who was involved in Russian collusion to sell the uranium. Rosenstein, who was involved in the Uranium One deal, appoints Mueller, who was involved in the Uranium One deal, to investigate Donald Trump, who was nowhere near the Uranium One deal. Excuse me.
But
Marussia, the closest in nearly a year of investigation with purported nigh metaphysical certitude of the existence of collusion between Donald Trump and Russia, the closest they have come is that Manafort was involved with a pro-Russian political party in, not Turkey, Ukraine. Legion, help me out here. I'm forgetting which country Manafort was helping the Russians take over. And as soon as anybody got wind of that, Trump just fired him, just got rid of it. Right? That was the only whiff of Russian collusion until we get this lawyer, Miss Vechelnitskaya, tries to con Junior into a...
Not Junior, Kushner.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tries to con Kushner into a meeting by saying we've got Oppo research, and it turns out that what she's really there for is to try and get Donald Trump to get friendly and to back off on the anti-Russian adoption campaigns. To be clear, the United States does not have a policy against Americans adopting Russian children. Putin does. And he has that in response to a series of sanctions that we placed on Russia because of hinky shit that was going on with nuclear defense, nuclear weapons strategies and deals. This is a great big tangled wad of madness here. But the real madness is that it has been allowed for Mueller, at the appointment of Rosenstein on the demand of Clinton, to investigate without evidence collusion between Donald Trump and Russia. Now, the reason that word collusion is so very important is because there is no crime called collusion. Collusion is not a crime. Conspiracy is not itself a crime. The only way that conspiracy can be alleged as a crime is if it is a conspiracy to commit a crime. If Cameron here was to go and murder somebody and I knew about it and maybe I buried the body, maybe I helped him get the weapon, maybe I dropped him off because his tire was flat, I would be guilty in that case of conspiracy to commit murder. Maybe I lured the victim to a place where he had easy access. That's conspiracy to commit a crime. But you still have to have a crime to allege. The reason they keep saying Trump colluded with Russia, and that's the whole sentence, right? They stopped saying Trump colluded with Russia to steal the election because we had testimony that said none of the votes were changed. So as soon as As soon as that was debunked, the sentence was constantly repeated over and over and over. Trump, Russia collusion. Trump, Russia collusion. Trump, Russia collusion. Trump colluded with, well, that's not a crime. Even if he had colluded with Russia on something, that in and of itself is not a crime. No crime has been alleged. So, it's time to get that word collusion out of our vocabularies as we start having the conversations that we're going to be having for probably most of the next year as this, or longer, as this unravels and shows that there has been a great big, just crazy scandal. I would honestly be surprised at the end of this if we didn't see Hillary Clinton, Bob Mueller, Rosenstein, A.G. Lynch, A.G. Holder, who are the other big racists in this?
Everybody that worked for Obama.
And Barack Hussein Obama
himself.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Indicted to some extent. Barry O, we haven't heard anything from Barry O. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that Barry O is off golfing in some lovely little non-extradition paradise for the rest of ever. Because there's some people going down. Now,
I'm going to have to say that I don't think anybody's going to go down for a couple of reasons. The first one is the Clintons should have went down a half a dozen times, and they didn't. The Clintons are they're like a magic trick, man.
They are.
Nothing ever happens to them. Just poof, puff of smoke, and then suddenly there is no crime. Forget the fact that Bill Clinton actually committed perjury because he did not have sexual relations with that woman. Now, whether or not the question was inappropriate, who cares? It's something that he lied about under oath. And yet, nothing happened there, and forget everything else that's happened with Bill and Hillary. Going all the way back to Watergate. Hillary was fired from the Watergate Commission for ethics violations.
Yeah.
This is how far
and
back
corruption.
This is how far back it goes with these people. So that's the first reason I don't think it's going to happen. The second reason I don't think it's going to happen is you have to drag two ex-presidents into the mix. And I, for one, would be really, really, really hesitant, even though I am not a big fan of Clinton. I'm not a big fan of Barry O in particular. But as soon as we start arresting ex-presidents, how long before we're a Central African country where, you don't want to be in the opposing party?
That is a slippery slope. That's a touchy place to be, and that's a good point you made. But on the question of whether or not they are reachable, whether or not they're touchable, whether or not we can put our hands on the Clintons, let's not forget, Billy Boy was in fact impeached, and he did have to pay fines. He didn't spend any time in jail. He wasn't removed from office. Amusingly, after having, I cannot believe this sentence is about to leave my face hole. After being impeached for perjury, he was reelected. Let that sink in. The Democrats reelected Bill Clinton after he had been impeached for lying under oath about extramarital affairs in the Oval Office.
Just quick aside. Did you see that Monica tweeted out #MeToo?
I did. So, yeah, that's right. Monica Lewinsky tweeted out #MeToo, which is part of that whole Weinstein thing. And you guys know about Weinstein, right? Weinstein and Clinton? Close, but no cigar. So, yeah, Weinstein. He's it is likely I'm the only person in the room or that will ever watch this show that actually has a subscription to the Hollywood Reporter. But the Hollywood Reporter ran a cover Oh man, I wish I'd have known that we were gonna get on this for a second tonight. I'd have brought it down. They ran a cover, and it's Weinstein on the cover, but somebody's gone in and photoshopped his mouth out and replaced it with like piranha teeth, and it's terrifying. And that's all they did is they fucked up his teeth, and it's terrifying. I mean, he's a scary looking dude with piranha teeth.
He's already a scary looking dude. It's
He
why
is.
he has to be a creep in order to get laid.
That's true. He's yeah. I mean, he's a chunky Jewish guy with no hair and bad skin. Not and over the hill. He's
Hey, little girl, you want to be in a movie? I could make you a star. You just come to my hotel. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I will do anything that my wife would be angry at me about. How about that?
Phew. Okay. So let's get back to because you know what I'm going to talk about Weinstein for just a minute to the extent to explain why I don't want to talk about Weinstein because I don't think I've given it adequate treatment. Here's the thing about Weinstein and the women that he allegedly abused. Now, when I say allegedly, I'm not trying to diminish the allegations. I'm not trying to diminish the terror of the experience these women had. I say allegedly because it hasn't been tried. The case, it hasn't gone through a court system and been decided. Now, allow me to diminish the claims and the substantiality of the terror that these women experienced. The women that are alleging that Weinstein abused them, harassed them, now there's a rape claim, and if that is substantiated, obviously that's unforgivable. Everything that Weinstein has been alleged to have done is unforgivable. Not having spoken out about it until after you've made a multi-million dollar career, earned wealth and fame in the trade-off for your body, having prostituted yourself for stardom in Hollywood, not speaking out before all of that has occurred is also unforgivable because every single claimant that precedes another claimant is guilty by dereliction of the crimes that befell the next victim. These women were faced with a situation where they were basically told, you can whore yourself for a movie role that will make you wealthy. And they chose, when they were offered a price for their product, they chose to make that sale. They might have felt dirty about it. They might have hated themselves for it, but they made the choice to make that sale. Because with the one exception that I know of so far, none of them is saying that he physically forced himself onto them. Right? They're all saying that he made advances, and then when they tried to rebuff his advances, he basically made it clear that this is how you get into Hollywood. We have decades and decades and decades. Marilyn Monroe made films that made jokes about the culture of sexual exploitation in Hollywood. This is not new knowledge. We are not suddenly aware this is something that goes on.
No, the casting couch has existed as long as Hollywood itself has existed.
Yeah, the casting couch is not just a trope in pornography because it's a trope in pornography. The casting couch is a trope because that is a fantasy that exists. Being in the position of power to be the exploiter is a fantasy that it's a demand that requires a supply. that demand gets supplied by pornography. But that supply, or I'm sorry, that demand comes from a fantasy that exists because it is a reality that exists.
Oh yeah, dude, I'd have to agree. Nothing gets me hard like giving a chick a Hobson's choice.
Wow.
But I mean, that's really what
Wow.
it is. Well, I'm sorry. Did I take it too far? If I took it too far, I'm sorry. But it's
I, I'm excited by the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and boobs.
yeah. And seriously, where do you have to be at where you are rich and you are powerful, and the only thing you can do is bully women into bed? Like,
Oh,
thanks.
and you know what? He's right. I mentioned Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe she did make a movie uh, about dealing with the casting couch type of stuff. Now, of course, it was all done in metaphor and illusion. You never actually saw Marilyn on the couch. But speaking of Marilyn Monroe, the JFK Files, baby.
You know, honestly, this is one where barely even interested in it because the government's gonna release what they choose to release.
My loving wife pointed out that as soon as they release all the JFK files, all of your conspiracy guys from forever ago, from way back, the guys have been talking about Oswald the Grassy Knoll and the two shooters and blah 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 forever and ever. Oh, they're all gonna say, well, yeah, they released the yeah, they released the ones they want you to see, and that's like we talked about last week, going into as we were just starting to brush on the Russian conspiracy stuff. The bitch about a conspiracy is that everything that seems to support your suspicion about a conspiracy seems incredibly legitimate. And everything that seems to run counter when you're talking about conspiracy feels like part of the cover up. It's very difficult to prove or disprove even a bad conspiracy. Because like if you've got let's say you've got a really bad conspiracy, once you start down the rabbit hole trying to examine the conspiracy, if it's a really bad conspiracy, the fact that it looks like a bad conspiracy is just part of the conspiracy. It looks like a bad conspiracy to make you think that. I mean, there's
Yeah,
you can get yourself dialed in a bad way.
yeah. Talk about the snake that eats his own tail.
Right. And I personally, I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy as far as actually getting into them and believing that there's this, that, and the other thing. But I love the idea of them being orchestrated and the careful, complex connections. Excuse me. I like to go through old conspiracy theory magazines and newspapers and videos and files and see what people have alleged in conspiracy and see all the just sticky little details they talk about. I find that shit fascinating.
I don't think we'll ever get all of the details surrounding JFK's assassination,
No.
and I think I think there's an incredibly simple reason for it. Conspiracy or not, murdered by the Rothschilds because he wanted to audit the Fed and put us back on the silver standard. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. All that aside, though, what
I think
happened?
the Democrats killed JFK because he didn't hate black people enough.
That's also possible. KKK inside job. You heard it here first on the Brushfire Mind. No, but all jokes aside, I think the real reason why we'll never know everything that happened with JFK is it was the successful assassination of a U.S. president on U.S. soil. I mean, you just, from strictly from an intelligence standpoint, you want to talk about such an utter failure. I mean, that's like getting checkmated in your first couple of moves in chess. It's like, have you ever played this game before? Do you know how this works? So I think the real reason we'll never get all the details is for the same reason a lot of cops hate those true crime shows. They don't want criminals getting the idea. Be like, oh, if I just carry around rubber gloves and ammonia, I can destroy 99% of the DNA evidence. And I think on a much larger scale, if you released all the information surrounding the assassination of a president, all it would take would be one or two nuts to go, hey, damn, this was the hole in the security with JFK. I bet we could find a similar one with Donald Trump because we hate that ass. So that's why I think it is what it is. It's just too dangerous to let that. It'd be like posting details on how to build a nuclear bomb at home, which you'd have to have uranium for.
So, with that deeply forced segue, I do want to pop back over to it and talk. I want to get back onto the idea about collusion that I was talking about. The reason that we have to get away from the use of the word collusion. Whenever we're talking about what went down with Uranium One, this is not a case of collusion because there are actual crimes to allege. There are campaign finance law violations. There are illicit campaign contribution violations alleged. The brokering of a deal by a flippin' U.S. political appointee. And hang on a second.
Hey kids, I love you. Thank you for tuning into my show. I love you.
I love you too, kids, and I love that you tuned in. I'll try not to drop too many more F-bombs.
Don't dox my children. What's wrong with you?
I didn't
First
say their
Legion and
names.
now my kids?
Oh, well, they did it. They're on, well, it's their problem. It's their fault.
Maybe.
Kids, we need to have a conversation about safe sex. InfoSec, HearSec, PhysSec, and ComSec. Individual identity security is your friend. Okay, so there's my PSA for the week.
Anyhow, continuing.
So, in the case of the Uranium One scandal, there have been actual crimes. We don't have to think about, we don't have to make up something that touches near something that sounds like it might taste like a crime. No, campaign finance law is law. A violation of that is crime. Now, Rosenstein and Mueller both knew damn well that their fingerprints are all over actual conspiracy to commit crimes with Russia on behalf of Russia to the benefit of Russia for personal profit. Rosenstein and Mueller both knew damn well that they were involved in that. So for them to have been involved in setting up this special counsel, which, by the way, special investigative counsel it requires a crime to investigate. We're going to go back and talk about Trayvon again in a minute, because that's an important example. Hey, old man, good to see you. Hope you haven't been drinking too much so you can keep up with me. And don't come in the back door. The screen's up. So, anyway. I got distracted. So that's why we're supposed to turn the chat monitor off while we're still in the monologue. I guess we kind of... Yeah, anyway. So, for Rosenstein and Mueller to have been involved in this investigation to begin with is ludicrous. Jeff Sessions recused himself because he once met a Russian. Okay? It is literally the case that Jeff Sessions once met a Russian. and therefore recused himself from involvement in the Russia investigation.
No, dude, it was totally spooky. He met him with his aides present in his office, and then, man, there was the time they were both at the same Heritage conference at the same time.
Yeah, they went to the Heritage Foundation to conspire to implement the Soviet socialist agenda on U.S. soil using a planted Republican candidate.
It's like an episode of, what's it, Ask the Minister?
So, like we said, there are actual crimes involved in that allegation. Now, let's talk about what it takes to launch an investigation. Let's talk about Trayvon Martin. So Trayvon Martin was not a victim of gun violence. George Zimmerman did not murder Trayvon Martin. What happened between Zimmerman and Martin is a young man lost his life in a botched murder attempt. When he attempted to murder another man, the other man was, much to the young man's surprise, armed, in complete compliance with the law, and Trayvon Martin lost that argument. The police on the scene determined that it was a clear-cut case of self-defense, and so they did not arrest George Zimmerman. So they didn't arrest George Zimmerman. The Attorney General.
Florida Attorney General.
Yeah, the Florida Attorney General refused to pursue prosecution, citing that there was not sufficient evidence to secure a conviction in the case of such a prosecutorial action.
But dude, he was a white Hispanic.
Exactly.
It was clearly a racially motivated crime.
Well, without even getting into any of that, we don't need to get down the rabbit hole of conspiracy where AG Holder sent paid riot people down there to stir up trouble and cause all this problem. No. The point is, in the case of Zimmerman and Martin, the AG, this is where it should have stopped, and y'all know the rest of the story. But the reason that Zimmerman was not arrested and not prosecuted before they brought in a criminal who was willing to prosecute him, is because there was not sufficient evidence to secure a conviction. That is the exact standard on which the decision to pursue prosecution for a conviction is based. And if you don't have evidence that says you'll secure a conviction, then you do not pursue prosecution. You can't just start investigating somebody for a crime. You can't just say, hey, you look like a drug dealer. I want to check your car for heroin.
Dude, do you need some heroin?
Let's see. That would be the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, but for real, I hope we're not. Do you need some heroin? Because I'm trying to do the alternate drug dealer thing.
Do I look like I do a lot of blow or whatever it is that ruins your teeth and makes you skinny?
I didn't say meth.
I'm good. Oh, and see, now Legion just doxed himself. And you know the funniest thing about that is the idea that Mario made fucking staff sergeant. Sorry, kids. So with Trump and the Special Investigation Council, they have launched an investigation without a crime. See, it's not just that the whole thing is crooked from the ground up. It's not just that you couldn't shove these guys through a keyhole in a straight line. They're investigating literally nothing. The fact that they launched an investigation to begin with is an absolute miscarriage of justice. Now, in that miscarriage of justice, we've talked about the drumhead before, the drumhead trial. Go ahead and explain what a drumhead trial is.
Well, in short, a drumhead trial is it's reference to military trials from days gone by. And basically sat around an overturned drumhead. There were no appeals, and you didn't want to get brought to a drumhead trial because you were probably dead if it happened. And drumhead trials were largely witch hunt trials. You had a crime, and you had to find the person that matched the crime. Or you had a person that you thought committed a crime, so you had to find situations that just matched up. And since people usually got executed at the end of these things, if you were wrong, no big deal. One of the biggest problems with the drumhead trial was, where did they stop? Where did they end? It's almost like that awkward moment where you're investigating Russian collusion, and then you stumble across your own Russian collusion by total accident. It's amazing. I've had many an awkward moment in my life. I don't know that I've ever had one quite that awkward.
Nope. So, the reason that you require some evidence of a crime prior in the United States, we have the Fourth Amendment. We are guaranteed that we will be secure in our persons, properties, and papers, and free from unreasonable search and seizure without a warrant issued by a judge on sufficient evidence. What's the phrase they like? What's the phrase they usually use? The suspicion, the probable cause. You got to at least have probable cause. So what went down with the Trump thing is basically you had some people. Let's say there's 6 people. We got 6 people standing around in a room. 3 of them walk outside. 2 come back in, and one of them's dead outside. The 2 that walked out with the one that's dead don't say nothing. The other 3, we might know exactly who did it. We might be certain in our gut. Of course, it could be that somebody else came up and did the murdering and ran away. So there's a 7th person we don't know about. That we are certain in our guts is not sufficient. And this example is even a little muddy in comparison to what we're talking about, because at least in this case, we have 3 witnesses that can place the 2 suspects at the scene. We don't even have that in the case of the Trump collusion thing. Sergeant Major points out the leaked grand jury information. That's a crime in itself. There is no integrity in the integrity, Sergeant Major? Is it in the investigation? Integrity. I'm going to harass you about that one later.
So, if you don't mind, I'm going to step in and help you really put a button on it, because I think this is a...
We need to start drawing it down anyway. It's quarter till.
I've always found it really interesting that the Democrats want to accuse the Republicans, for example, of being racist, when it's the Republican Party that was founded to end slavery, and it's the Democrat Party that was the home of the KKK and all of that kind of stuff. And it seems almost universal that when Democrats accuse others of things like class warfare, skimming on your taxes, being racist, classist, sexist, whatever, I mean, Weinstein, man, like, he's big lib, big lib. Oh, he's all about them women's rights.
Oh yeah, feminist.
Oh yeah, total feminist.
Pro-feminism films.
Oh yeah, he's all good with women.
Strong women characters. Casting strong women characters in films. Sargon of Akkad. Sargon of Akkad said it best. The moment a man says that he is a feminist, you just go ahead and start the clock on the rape allegations.
That's a good way to put it. But in this case in particular, is it possible that part of the reason why they made such a big stink over doing nefarious things with Putin in particular and using the U.S. government as a back channel to basically do all these illegal things, profit from all these illegal business decisions? Did the Democrats orchestrate this from the beginning in real time?
Absolutely.
But if Hillary had been president, none of this would have ever come out. Why run the risk? Or is that just the way the Democrats operate? It's this emotional gut punch to this emotional gut punch to this emotional gut punch. You just let the chips fall where they may.
Oh no! You're missing an important factor here. What if Hillary had won, and then still alleged Russian collusion with Trump? Got this whole drumhead trial en route. Got all that noise going on. Trump is suddenly much less popular because he's a loser. He doesn't have the power of the office of the presidency behind him to help him get through all this mess. He's still good and rich, but Hillary suddenly has much more political capital, much more political clout, and is in a much better position. I think they planned on launching this investigation from the beginning to create a smokescreen to hide the problems that they knew that they would face. And because if Hillary won the election, broke through the imaginary glass ceiling, took the office, and then exposed that she did that against the auspices of Russia working against her in conspiracy with Donald Trump, she's a hero. She gets to be a 4-term president.
As long as she can stay awake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 4-term president Hillary Clinton, she's going to be dead in 4 or 5 years. But, so let me get to a couple of comments. I told my buddy that I wasn't going to answer comments all night until we had gotten through the conversation a little further. Conversation went longer than it was intended to, largely because I started responding to your damn comments. Next week, I'm going to turn the monitor off. I'm not going to look at a word you guys have to say until I've gotten through a solid monologue at the beginning. But thank God y'all were there to bring my attention to the sound issues. So now I know I got to fix those. So let's see. Sergeant Major says leaked grand jury information. That's a crime itself. There is no integrity in the investigation. And you're absolutely right. The investigation, like Steven Crowder constantly says, Marley was dead at the beginning. Marley was dead at the beginning. And Mario, special counsel, serves no point but to drop bombs prior to the 18 midterms and ultimately 20 election. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. This is something that Legion and I were talking about earlier today. One of the things that they expected to be able to accomplish by way of these investigations is to create the equivalent of an October surprise for the 2018 midterms. The Dems have been getting their asses pounded, especially at the midterms for a while now. And what they were really hoping is that I'm sorry, kids, between kitty tickling and Russian collusion, they could drop enough bombs going into the 2018 to have an upset like the Tea Party of 2010. And hey, with it breaking the way it is on Mueller and Rosenstein and Clinton right now, I think those options are gone. Um, so I want to point out, yeah, because this is stuff that I was talking to Legion about earlier, and we got a little bit more time, so I want to get to some of this, and I'll do a little bit about the American one-party system. So as we see more and more of this, we see where like McCain was involved with Fusion GPS, and prominent Republicans apparently also funded the dossier that the Democrats funded. It looks more and more like we've essentially been living with a false electoral system where the system still functions legitimately, but the game has been rigged, and essentially the Democrats and the Republicans are they're actually the same party, and they've just been giving us a list that says this is whose turn it is, and this is the other schmuck. And they're always just close enough. I mean, I could not have abided John Kerry, but was Bush much better? I could not have abided John McCain, but was Obama really much worse?
I would say Obama was worse.
Uh,
Tried and true socialist. Yeah.
just like John McCain.
John McCain never wrote a book where he hinted at being attracted to communists and socialists and whatnot.
Well, but anyway, so in Rocket Man's North Korea, the way it works, there are two parties. In the 한국 판도에서는 they have a huge elections. Every few years they have a huge elections, and there are two parties. There's the Labor Party, and there's the opposition party. You are allowed to vote for the Labor Party. Voting for the opposition party is a good way to suffer some of that samchon justice, that three generations justice, where they put you and your father, your father's father, and his father, and your son and his son and his son. It's three generations up and down, and they put your happy asses in the labor camps till you die. That's how you vote in North Korea when they have a huge election. So it's a single party system. They put it up there so it looks like you get to vote, but your vote literally does not count in any way whatsoever. I mean, there's a reason that the Kim dynasty has lasted since the early 50s, late 40s. The Korean War started
in the 50s.
The Korean War, that was Kim Il Sung, and that was 1950.
1951?
1953, and ended at 55. June to July. Anyway, the Kims have been in charge for a long damn time. The great leader, and then the dear leader, and now the brilliant comrade. And they have a democracy because they're the Minjujui, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The GOP establishment are the Washington Generals to the Democrat Harlem Globetrotters. Well played. So, yeah. So it looks more and more like, the more we see, the more it looks like the Democrats and Republicans are essentially the same party. And the incredible disdain for Donald Trump quite simply comes down to, holy shit, it wasn't his turn.
Yeah, somebody penetrated the bubble.
They've breached the borders of The bureaucracy. Oh. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to call it a night. It's been good to see everybody. We love your faces. We love to see you. We'll see you next week at the same time. Thanks for signing on. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Tonight was a big night. We had a pretty full chat channel tonight. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell notification. Keep tuning in. The Brushfire Minds production studio, the Guerrilla Tragedians, will be producing a few films in the very near future. And until next time, like us, subscribe, follow, and if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. I'll see you next week. Come burn with us. Good night.